Hi and good evening, everyone. My voice just cracked, but my name is Albert, and this is VlogsBoutNothin. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy Saturday to join me. I really appreciate it. Down at the good old spot, just holding it down, drinking some coffee, eating some cookies. Shout out to the clerk who sold me those Chips Ahoy cookies that were 50% off at my local Circle K, a place that I frequent because I'm a fan of the K. So thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. Just a little silly time or whatever. I'm anxiously awaiting the upload of the new Y-Files video, which I always do every single week. Just because like I enjoy the content and I'm just this dude who likes to do nothing, who really enjoys watching videos. I mean, yeah, good thing that I can post my own videos and try to like come up with somewhat my own future, at the same time. So that's always fun. But again, thanks to all the new subs and viewers. I really appreciate it. Tonight, I want to give an impromptu speech about police officers. Okay, so here's the thing, right? Born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico, I have the privilege of saying that you know, the last decade, my local police department was investigated by the Department of Justice for the continued overuse and corruptive practices that were taking place here at the local level. I mean, not anything akin to sort of like what happened to, say, NYPD when they got busted for all their corrupt guys back when it was that time. And see, the thing is, I want to support cops. You feel me? Like, I don't, ideologically speaking, I think everyone has a very vested interest in maintaining the safety of their communities, right? So, like, police officers are a required entity. Unfortunately, we live in a time where there has never been a more violent sort of awakening as it concerns the observation of witnessing police brutality, whether it's against black and brown people specifically, or even white people, or just over marginalized socioeconomically challenged people. You know what I mean? It seems like cops are always getting a bad rap. And so here's the thing. Here is the thing. I support, obviously the idea of there being police officers. I think that police officers need like to be properly staffed. I feel like they can only do so much, and their jobs are beholden upon ultimately policymakers and people that make the rules, as opposed to there being any kind of real opinion against enforcing those rules. Police officers have a job. They have a mandate, and it's to serve their community in whatever capacity that their employment contract outlines and so forth. But the thing is, I really feel like they get a bad rap because they don't, they probably, as it is, nobody gets paid enough, right? I mean, to say that being a police officer and getting started at, 40 to 60K a year is somewhat kind of like a benefit to you is false, because you're still working poor, and it blows my mind that we expect working poor people to be honest, like seriously, with all due respect. That's a pretty tough thing to do. Earlier I was watching a video on Johnson's channel, and he was talking. There's a story on his page talking about this guy that worked at a Brinks place, and all the details spared or whatever, because it's obviously a terrible thing. But I feel like too often criminal behavior is the direct result of people suppressing other people in a socioeconomic fashion. Meaning that, like, if people got paid more, there would be way less crime. And this is, without a doubt, irrefutable. I have done my own little experiments in life, right, as an employer of many people throughout the years, and one of the things that I've taken away with some kind of real passion and zest as a younger guy was understanding that you can't expect people to perform a task for you while you are the one that is so receiving the benefits in a way that is beyond any kind of morally conducted argument in a good way. You know what I mean? Again, it's sort of like when I hear California restaurant makers and corporations complaining about how costs need to be passed on to customers in order to absorb higher minimum wages and so forth. I mean, again, you understand that that's all like garbage, in terms of none of that. It's all false, right? Which is why you see these places continue to, push forward agendas where they try to control the prices in the markets, and then people don't. They act appropriately as they would be in a real free market, and then they don't go, and then they're forced to lower their prices. It's all this thing, right? I mean, have you heard of McDonald's? I mean, what a nightmare, right? I live in a world where, like, we live in a world, not just mine, but we live in a world where McDonald's could have been, like, more successful, if that makes sense. And even we know them to be, right? Because they passed on Chipotle, which was, like, a huge mistake for them. Sort of like, Blockbuster passing on Netflix, is just one of those mistakes that can't be undone. But regardless, my point is that people need to get paid more. And I feel like that's not often talked about because too busy we're talking about like criminals, and their behavior, and we're trying to figure that out when it really isn't hard to figure out. We see this in the content of which we're being provided tonight, in that, police officers should probably be paid more. I feel like there would be less corruption. I feel like there would be less problems, within the community if we provided the people that we want to protect us with adequate wages. Don't get me started on the military, right? Because so far as I'm concerned, I'm pro America. I love every branch of military service. You feel me? On not in a way that surpasses the modern conventional excuse for signing men up to people, men, and that men, women, they, them, to go put their life out on the line for us so that we can continue this governmental reality that we have going on here in the States. And they don't get paid enough. Just facts. And we're not talking about them right now, but like, can you imagine asking our service members to like, put their life on the line for us all the while they're on the clock 24 hours a day, only get paid for a handful of those hours. We tax them to no end when they do get their checks finally so that we can subtract high cost items from their commissary to go off of their paycheck, and they end up with like a couple $1,000s, you know what I mean? Which again, in retrospect, is like working poor, okay? And so, whose fault is that? Well, I mean, it's inevitably policymakers' fault, but in a correlatable kind of a way, we put these cats in office, you feel me? And we do little to nothing to make sure that they are accountable when they are within these positions of authority. And so it's never a slight. And I feel like it's a false, misleading sort of concept in that we need to talk about money. We need to talk about money before we can talk about anything else, because money is quality of life. Quality of life is something we expect our local law enforcement to protect, right? We expect this. We demand this. It's a good thing we don't all hit them up at the same time, right? Because the total of like the 14 cops out there aren't going to really be able to handle in true fashion all of the kind of things that can pop off at any moment. You feel me? Not again, and not to mention, and the military one bothers me again because those guys can't speak on it. You feel me? And for 1 second, if you don't think that they don't think about that, you're wrong, right? Because again, wouldn't you at some point, wouldn't you be like, hey, wait a second, I'm doing all this work, I'm part of an industry that promotes unaliving as a form of justice to promote peace and stability, all of which could, definitely be argued in terms of the whole conundrum of irony there, in that. So like, if we're gonna require these services, and if we want to feel safe, and if we want to feel like there's people out there willing to protect us at all costs, well then hey, that's a service that all of us as taxpayers should be really, more adamant on making sure goes to them, like directly to them, directly to their pay, directly to their benefits. Why do we live in a country where most of all the veterans that need our assistance have like the hardest time accessing any of their potential benefits as a result of their voluntary or involuntary discharge. Like, this is real talk. And going back to the police officers, sometimes I don't know why this brown guy defends them, honestly. And I mean, now we'll get into the like beef of the video these last few minutes. There's real no vested interest in black or brown people or poor white people supporting police officers. Historically, they have made it a an agenda to disproportionately discriminate against those of us that have nothing. And while I'm like the professor of nothing here, sometimes nothing isn't a good thing. And when nothing is provided to marginalized populations, whether it be ethnic, cultural, whatever it is, it's not fair. And playing the game requires being a respectable person, in that rules are made to be followed. And if we want to change them, let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. But let's not continue to come up with these situations where if one thing is eliminated, the other thing, by just sheer physics, is going to be a lot less of a problem. So, you know, I don't know why I support them. I support them because as an American, and it's because as a person, I believe in the ideologies that are set forth when providing a kind of recognized protection in a world that is unpredictable. You understand? I understand that not all crime will go away overnight. I know that, but I'm telling you that like we should pay our police officers more. We should pay our service members more. Like I don't even know like why that's a thing. And again, we need to pay them more because of the importance that their job has. And to go back to that question before I end the video, I firmly believe that people do the right thing more over than they do the wrong thing. And this is a gamble that is a high risk one at best, in that I firmly believe this. And I don't need, to even for 1 second assume and under any presumption that people are guilty before they're proven innocent. Again, what a flawed 500-year-old legal system that continues to impact all of our days, every single second, every single breath that we take, even if you don't think that it does. So I'll support police officers, like be the bigger person here in terms of like we should support them, and I think that obviously support means money, and I think corruption would not be a thing. I think police officers would be happier to go to work. I think that there'd be more stability within the local communities that require the services of police officers. Police officers can be wonderful advocates for the community, honestly, seriously, like more than anybody. These guys are out there on the streets. They know the problems that the community is facing firsthand. They have firsthand knowledge of all of the ailments that are prevalent within all of our communities around this country. They are the gatekeepers to change. So yeah, while again, historically they've not been on any one side that isn't wealthy and or arguably a certain race, I will continue to push forward the idea that they are needed. And again, they are needed in ways that we don't think about because we often don't see the worst of all the areas in our communities. And I feel like we do that for a reason because we don't want to remind ourselves that like just within a couple of miles of us there's encampments of tents that people live in, like that's tough. And not a lot of us are willing to discuss that, right? But I'm assuming that we should be able to be adult enough to discuss paying police officers more and getting from them what we expect and demand, not the other way around. We shouldn't expect and demand services from a group of people that have little to no incentive to help out communities. And in fact, it could be argued have far greater incentive to cause harm or to steal or to be corrupt. And again, these things are all inherently bad. for the entire community. So I strongly urge everyone out there to, really consider a reasonable position on police officers within your local community. And instead of approaching a problem with more problems, perhaps we can approach this problem with different kinds of solutions. Ultimately, paying these guys more is what it's going to take. But however we need to end up there, we should talk. So I hope that everyone has a wonderful evening. Thanks again for joining me on the program. To all the new subs and viewers, I couldn't do it without you. You make everything so worthwhile. You feel me? I really mean that. And I hope that you guys have a really good night, all right? Bye.